So the content for today will be we're looking at different DALI gateway options. KNX has a plethora of options of any kind of functions or devices, and we're no different with DALI. There is literally limitless. We focus on a few brands that we bring in, and the reason we focus on those is they meet the criteria. Sometimes you can have too much choice, and more importantly, with all the DALI gateways, we have built-in power supplies. And what that means is it's 240 volt connected. So this is a special certification for having 240 volt devices in Australia. So that's why we are limiting what we are looking at with that aspect. We'll also look at different ways of programming the DALI configuration and commissioning the DALI side of things. So there's apps and third-party tools. We'll also look at a multi-master option. So we've got a unique offering. There's a few different unique offerings, but we're going to look at a different unique offering for a KNX multi-master DALI control option. We're going to touch on a little bit of HCL lighting and scheduling and how that's done in the KNX world. And then finishing off, there's always some common wiring and network issues that we find, and hopefully this will help you navigate that dangerous world that electricians are installing and you have to kind of fix. So by the end of that, we'll have some questions. And yeah. So DALI gateway options. Before we get to DALI gateway options, like I said, there's lots and lots of KNX options for DALI, and it all comes down to what best fit for. So what I've done here is we've just generated some things that you might be considering or might have to consider before making a choice or before coming to us for different types of DALI functions and requirements. And some of the requirements or needs for the DALI installation, is it a DALI 2 drivers or are they DALI 1? Are you doing any exit and emergency testing? There's gateways that have all of the above and board plus the exit emergency testing. Is there any color control, RGB, RGBW? Is there any tunable white? And is there any human-centric lighting requirements? Oops. The DALI network, is that going to be in groups? How many groups? Also, is it individual? Are you going to have individual ballast control, or is it simply going to be a broadcast control approach? Because there's benefits for different products for doing different things and quite a number of savings, known cost being one of them, as well as time. The wiring length, how much area have we got to cover? Because the DALI network is limited, and how many devices within that network have we got to operate, and what's the best fit form for that? Do we need a one-channel device? Do we need a two-channel device? Are we looking at special features that you're trying to sell to the customer, like self-healing for new fittings? If we have a faulty fitting in the network, do you need to be there to replace it with a dress, or can you slot a new device in that will self-heal, put itself to the old address of the faulty fitting and without any kind of programming? Are we going to use other DALI devices to control that network? Do we need to look at multi-master? Do we have to consider things like consumption of monitoring and standby switching with DALI devices? And what type of visualization and reporting? And when I talk about this, we're mainly talking about exit emergency testing. Do we need a requirement for the DALI gateway to be KNX as well as MQTT? Do we need time control? Do we need human-centric lighting? And I thought I'd finish off just with, we've got other protocols. KNX is a main part of a component of what we do as a business, but it's not what we do. Our actual strategy and our actual mission is to become a major supplier of building products that are using an open or standardized protocols. So that means that we're supporting things like KNX, DALI, BACnet, MQTT, that Modbus, everything that's non-proprietary is what is in our pigeonhole. The other big consideration, which I'm going to touch on a bit here, I think is underutilized a lot, and that is the automatic broadcast programming. So we have a lot of DALI gateways that are coming out nowadays that are actually broadcast channels. And this just makes things so much simpler. If you're a regular DALI programmer, regardless if it's KNX or not, you'll understand that a lot of your program time and money puts into programming a DALI network and addressing it and grouping it. Now, that's not to say you haven't already spent a hell of a lot of time on DALI faults and trying to establish where the wiring is going wrong. with automatic broadcasting means that the wire that's coming out of that channel can loop to every DALI fitting, and every DALI fitting is not individually controlled, it's controlled on a broadcast. You don't have to do addressing, you don't have to do groupings, and most importantly, it's easy for the electrician to wire. You just tell him to take this out of the channel and take it to every DALI fitting that wants to be switched with that. And you still get all the features of the DALI, like fault folding and fault reporting and stuff like that. And another big consideration when we're doing DALI products or looking at DALI products is the DALI commissioning tool. You know, what are the requirements going to be for that? Is the standalone tool going to be okay? Is the DCA app, which is an app that runs inside ETS, will that be suffice? Will it need to be a web browser? Do you have to consider that there will be other people that are not trained that may need to access the DALI side for any kind of faults, replacing fittings and that? The type of things of we're talking about is electricians and facility managers. So we'll move on to our next slide, and what we'll do is I'll take you through manufacturer by manufacturer, a little bit of an overview through their website of the product range and the offerings that they've got so that we can touch on those in a second. So let me just switch my camera. APB have quite a broad offer. They've been doing a lot of DALI and KNX for a long time, and they're synonymous with working with DALI and KNX. They've evolved their offer as they've went, and they've got quite a number of different options. What's important here is, and the same goes for a number of gateways, is what you'll notice is the power supply for the DALI is built in, so there's no need for an extra power supply. What's more important though is it has a feature inside the gateway which allows for, without any programming, your installers, being the electricians, can plug straight into the DALI, put power to it, and the gateway will auto address fittings. Once it's auto address fittings in the first couple of minutes of startup with it flashing, then it's able to control those fittings through a broadcast control through a button. And what this means for you as an integrator is much more efficiency. A lot of our time is used finding faults in the DALI network, and you are there pretty much trying to find other people's faults. But if you can negate that or mitigate any time you have there, what you can say to the integrators in part of your special notes is to say that they can test the network without you being there by simply hooking up power to it, pressing the button and turning the whole network on and off. This way they can eliminate a lot of mistakes and faults before you even get to site. So that's a really good savings. I've just gone to their DALI page just to show you a number of options. They've got a number of options from their DG/S 1.64.1 device, which is the DALI 1 gateway. It has auto self-healing, it has exit emergency testing, a number of features which we'll look at. Then they've progressed that to the DALI Premium gateway, and they are the DGS 2.64.5.1 or the 2GS.1.64.5.1. They also have a range of DALI broadcast channels, which again we're going to talk a little bit more about. These are really important, these options, and I think they're underutilized in a lot of manufacturers, and the reason for that is there's no actually programming for the DALI side or commissioning of the DALI network. And what it allows for is DALI lines that are switched together, so it's much easier for the installer. You just tell them to take the DALI cable to wherever the lights can be switched, and they're going to be switched in a group. So there's no actual addressing, there's no need for grouping or anything like that. It can make things a lot simpler, and when you weigh up the cost of what you're trying to do, you know, this is a really cost-effective way to go because it's cheaper on the gateway and it's cheaper for your programming price. If we just have a look at, say, one of the premium gateways here, the difference with these gateways is they've allowed for DALI 2. They're single master, they're not a multi-master, but they are a DALI 2 network, and they can handle color controls and DT8 and DT6 much better. They do exit emergency testing. So yeah, quite an extensive gateway. When we're looking at it, it handles a lot of different things. Another really good manufacturer who is been working hard to extend the functionality and the range of their gateways and has some impressive functionality and features is Theben. So Theben have a number of gateways, and like the others, they have built-in power supplies and multiple universes, as well as ballast control and group control and ballast control. One unique product offering that they've got, which is fairly unique in the KNX world, is a multi-master gateway. And this gateway allows for DALI inputs and sensors on the DALI side of the bus to not only control the local DALI network there as well as the KNX through the gateway, but it also allows for those DALI sensors and inputs to control stuff on the KNX side of things. So this gateway is DALI 2 certified. It's the flagship for Theben for their gateway. It's a one channel. Another interesting point about this gateway is it has an Ethernet connection, so it has the options to be programmed through the DCS app and through a web browser, and that's really interesting for electricians and facility managers and stuff like that. We're going to have a look at that later, but basically it does exit emergency reporting. Another really interesting part of this product, which I've only just discovered, is it has the ability for API or MQTT. Now, that could be interesting for you guys that are looking at exit emergency testing, making your own MQTT server, which we can have a look at a bit later. It's a fairly really good product for color control and color temperature. And so keep a look out for this one as well. So it's a bit underutilized. The next one, which is an interesting one, which we're going to go to now, is they've brought out another really valuable product, and I can see a lot of thought that's gone into this one, and that is a 4-channel DALI broadcast gateway. Now, the interesting part about this gateway is that it does DALI Type 2, which is DALI 2, which is DALI Type 8, and DALI 6. So it's really good for color control, human-centric lighting, and without the worries of doing commissioning or anything like that. They've also got the traditional 2-channel and 1-channel gateways. These gateways can do 64 fittings or 128 fittings over 2 channels. They can be 16 group and individual ballast control, and they also handle DALI 2. They have DALI Type 8 and DALI Type 6, so that's all the color control and temperature. And then they have their original flagship gateway, which is the DALI Plus gateway, which allows for 64 groups, exit emergency, individual ballast control, and IP addressing through web browser. Another really interesting thing which they've brought out, which I think is majorly underutilized as well in the KNX world, is DALI broadcast interfaces that are surface mount. So these don't live in the switchboard. Basically, these devices, you put power to them, you put KNX to them, and they can run up to 30 broadcast fittings in broadcast mode. They support RGB, RGBW, tunable white. They have an easy replacement in the fault of an event. They have binary inputs. So this is really good for retrofitting or places where you can't quite get to the switchboard. But you'll also see, which we don't have available at the moment, but it's in the way to becoming that, and that's the RF KNX DALI. So that's a real special product. We can't use it in Australia just yet, but we're looking to they're looking to getting the right frequency for Australia, and that means that all you do is put power to it, and it's an RF DALI module. For you guys that know, Zennio is another really good manufacturer. Always works hard on functionality and quality of the products, and they've got a really diverse range of DALI as well, so there's no end to choice in KNX. They've got a DALI box broadcast 6-channel gateway. Again, this can do up to 250 fittings. Each one of these channels can support up to 64 ballast each. That's huge, you know. And when we're looking at being simplicity, like I've said previously, no configuration, wiring is fixed, so you can tell the electrician just to wire the switching groups, and then that couldn't be simpler. And you still get all the benefit of the DALI with reporting and ballast control and all that. Not ballast control, but you know, indication of faults and stuff like that as well. So they've also got a range of 2-channel and 1-channel gateways. The beauty of these, they can be configured on the front of the gateway, but these certified 2 DALI, they're KNX secure devices. They can be done through a DCA tool, really good gateways that can handle 16 groups, individual ballast control, all the rest of that. So again, another really good option. And they also have seen this need in the market for retrofitting or making simple parts for DALI networks, and this can be equally used in domestic or commercial jobs. And basically it's a puck, it can belong in a wall, it can do up to 16 independent ballast or 16 groups, and it follows DT8 and DT1 emergency lighting control as well. It's a certified DALI 2 controller, and it's compatible with data secure. So all we need to this again is the KNX power, and we can run it automatically, manually control it, and all the rest of it. So another unique product from Zennio. And just to throw something different into the mix of what we're talking about, we've been focusing a lot on KNX, and while that's great, Ivory Egg has got a mandate not only to be KNX, and we're not trying to be just a KNX distribution company, but open protocols building product and control company that supplies open protocol, standard protocol devices for the building markets. And one of our big supporters and manufacturers for that is synonymous with everything that I've just said, and that is Intesis. Intesis are well known for their air conditioning gateways and building gateways, but they also are known for inter-system gateways. So they have a full range of DALI 2 gateways, but the gateways can be from BACnet, they can be from Modbus, they can be from KNX, and so they've really opened up that option. So depending on where you are in the network, depending if you haven't got KNX, you've always got an option. These are all gateways are certified DALI 2 gateways, and they can handle a range of products. They're all commissioned through the MAP software, which we're not going to go into yet, but it's a really nice software that every Intesis device that is a multiple gateway is in program through, and it's an impressive range of gateways, just to add some flexibility to what we sell. We're not just here for KNX, but all DALI 2 products. So that was a bit of an overview of the DALI products that are available, but now we're going to talk about the apps or the DALI commissioning apps that are associated with those products, and the different methods and the different reasons and why we'd use one over the other. We have three major ways that we can commission DALI networks with KNX products or KNX DALI gateways, and that would be the standalone tools. So the standalone tools are proprietary tools, and the two instances or the two examples I'm talking about here would be the ABB iBus tool or the Intesis maps. We're going to have a bit of an overview and look at those. And basically what they do is they use the KNX connection, the same KNX connection your ETS uses on your computer, and it interrogates the DALI side of the gateway through the KNX. Okay, so I'm going to mention this again, and the beauty of that is you can do DALI commissioning offsite. Also, as of ETS 6, there's integrated plugins or apps that are available, and some of the gateways have, such as Theben and Zennio, have what we call a DCA app, and that app runs inside ETS, so there's no third-party software, there's no standalone tools, it just runs next to it, and it uses the KNX connection also, and that can be really nice and an easy way to do programming. And finally, another really unique way, or always looking for an advantage, is to do it through a web browser. I can tell you now, the Theben gateway is available, and so is anyone, through the DCA app, and it's also available through the web browser. Now, because it's a web browser directly to the gateway, the commissioning and the changing of DALI addresses and the configuration of the network is much quicker. And that's because we're using IP and we're not tunneling through the KNX network. So if you think about the KNX network, we're actually using the KNX cable, we're having to go to IP and then IP to the computer, and then that's how we do it, commissioning through the KNX through to the DALI side. So one of the real premium tools, and I believe it's probably nearly best in class, is the ABB iBus tool. So what the ABB iBus tool does is it's not just the DALI commissioning tool, but a lot of the devices, you can make configurations to the device by making a point-to-point connection. As long as you know the individual address of the device you need to connect to, you can actually go in and make a point-to-point connection. So it uses a KNX connection, and here I've got a number of KNX connections if I was to use them, and then I'd have to put that in, and then I could go to connect to a device, and basically if I know the address of the device, then I can go to it, or I can scan for the line. For this demonstration, I'm going to show you the demo version, so you can have a little test of it, and it runs a simulation in the background. What it does is it runs a simulation, and what we're going to have a look at is one of the premium DALI gateways and how we configure it in it. One thing I'll say to this gateway while it's loading up is, or this tool, is ABB have announced that they're going to make a mobile version of it. It's due to come out before the end of the year. We're very excited. We can't wait. I think this will be a game changer. A lot of people seem to use Rapix, which is a really good tool as well. And part of the appeal of the Rapix tool is that you can do it on a handheld device. Now, for any of you that have done DALI commissioning, you'll understand what a big advantage this is, being able to walk around, turn lights on and off, and discover and readdress fittings like that. So hold your breath. I think it won't be too long before we'll see that come out. So going into this demo version of the tool, basically it scans the line automatically, tells him how many devices is, how many are monitored, if there's a conflict, if there's a fault, or if there's power on the gateway, space used and stuff like that as well. What we need to do, we need to hit configuration mode, and what configuration mode will do is open it up for it to be adjusted. Now, one of the beauties of this tool, and like other tools, you can select the brightness level of the selected and unselected, and actually you can make them blink. This is really handy if you have to go address light fittings or anything in an office that's already people in it. Instead of turning the whole office off and turning the light on that you're trying to find, you can do the opposite. Leave all the lights on, only turn the light off that you're trying to find. And so that's really, really helpful. If I go a bit further, I can click into the DALI network. Oops, not letting me. There we go. And basically it brings up every fitting, and this is already done as a simulation showing every type of fitting here. And what we were to do, if you could see there's a little S on the fitting, that means that in the gateway you've chosen this to be a single control gateway. And if I click on it now, then whatever you've chosen the function of it to do is it'll brighten up or blink or whatever it is, and everything else will be normal. To readdress any fitting, you just click on the fitting you want to address, and if I saw that fitting somewhere else and I knew that that address of the fitting was actually meant to be 12, I drag it and drop it into 12, and it won't let me do it because it's monitored. But if I did another one this way, it changes the address automatically and it swaps addresses. Grouping's quite easy. If I click on the grouping, I can also highlight everything that's in the group, and to change that grouping, I can just press the plus symbol, and then I can add devices into that group very easily that way. I can also clear group memberships, and clear all group memberships. I can reset individual ballasts. So if I've got a problem with a single DALI device, I can reset the whole line. From here I can control on and off, and I can start an automatic readdressing, and I can see that there's unaddressed devices on here. Conflicts in DALI group, really handy if you've already pre-commissioned the short addressing, or you haven't got you got a conflict in your project, and the conflict usually something's different on your network compared to what you've got in your KNX programming. You can either choose to push the values from the DALI devices back to the gateway, or you can choose to use the gateway values and push it into the DALI devices. Really handy as well. Another unique little part of what the ABB can do is search for devices too. This is magic if you're ever on a site. So if you can't find a fitting at all, you can send the apprentice down to have a look, or someone to have a look at the fitting, and tell them just to watch the fitting that you're trying to find the address of, and you press start and you tell them, tell me, is the light fitting on or off? And they'll say, yes, it's on. And then it'll change again, and it'll say, tell me if it's on or off, and they'll say it's just turned off. And you can see what's happening. It's drilling down till you get the right fitting. So if we just went through the process, it'll come through and tell us exactly what the fitting is, and mitigates a lot of problems running around trying to identify fittings and stuff like that. If it's not obvious, there you go. It tells us it's bit ballast 25. Okay, so we can also dial down a little bit into the overviews as well. Waiting for my... And it can update, you know, and you can write to it. It can tell you what type of DALI device it is, if it's a DALI Type 8, DALI Type 6, you know, and it scans the network and asks for it. You can drive the fittings on or off that way as well. You can also go into details, and details means you can manually control from here, not from KNX, the brightness of them, the color temperature, if they were color temperature fittings, or RGB fittings, or anything like that, okay? So again, you've got multiple ways that you can control things. You can look at different groups or outputs and stuff like that as well, okay? Just finally on this tool, if you have exit emergencies, this is not a reporting tool, but it is a way to test whether the functionality is happening that you want from the fitting or the ballast. And that way you can choose a duration test or a partial duration test, press start, and it'll actually go and collect the results in here and stuff like that. So another really nice option here. Without stopping there, we're going to move straight into having a look at how Intesis do their DALI devices. And basically they use the MAP software. The MAP software is brilliant. It works with air conditioners, gateway protocols, and as you can see here, KNX and DALI. So what we need to do, we need to create a new project. And you can see some of the BMS protocols that are available here. So what we can do is we can click on any of these, or we can just search for DALI. Oops. And it'll give up all their products here. Now, to keep with the theme, we'll stick with the DALI KNX gateway to see, so we can have a comparison here. But basically, you could have DALI to BACnet, DALI to Modbus, DALI to KNX. Now, I'm running through without this actually working, so we're just going to have to ad-lib and make it work. Basically, you have a little prompt here because it's IP controlled as well, so you can configure time and stuff like that. You get a bit of information about the KNX, what physical address you want it to be, and when we get to the DALI page, then we can choose to commission on the DALI page here, and we can search for DALI scan and DALI network, and it'll automatically define the fittings, the instances, and that means the DALI inputs or the ballast, and you can scan the network and pull back the addresses and adjust the addresses and check them and do all that kind of things. But if we were looking at just that kind of network, we can actually edit the scenes here as well, so we can go through and say what we want to do with the scenes. But we also have group management here, so you know, ballast, short address, what groups it involved in, and they can be overlapping as well. We can see apply names to them and stuff like that as well. So another nice little tool here. We'll tick those just for the instances, and we can say what the signal failure is and things like that as well. And if we bring back into the signals, basically this is every signal you could possibly get from the DALI devices that you've got, and these can be linked to KNX, okay? So little less functionality from this device and a little bit more of a gateway, which is what they purport to do. So basically, you know, group one, you can turn the power or switch the fitting up and down, or start, stop, minimum recall levels and stuff like that. So that's all listed in the DALI thing. You can make the scene calls and stuff like that. So again, another powerful tool. And we can actually do diagnostics on this tool as well. And from here we can actually plug in information or put in KNX to see what's going to happen there. Okay, so we can scan the DALI network as well. Okay, for our final one, which is going to be programmable, or the DALI commissioning done through the web browser. The beauty of this is there's no software required. This is completely through the web browser. You can do things like have access to MQTT or APIs, so you can make your own software, very flexible in the way it can talk. You have to set this information on the gateway to start with to make it available. But you can also set users and administrators. So for you guys that are looking to pass over any of the maintenance and stuff to other electricians or to facility managers, you can limit what they can do and how much trouble they can get in. So once we've got that all set, we download to it, and then what we get the ability to come to it through a web page. And so I put my user in. Oops. Okay. And so we're into the gateway here. So straight away it tells us the serial number, the MAC address, individual address, everything you'd expect, the lamp failure statuses, and if it's got KNX not hooked up or the DALI's not hooked up. So a quick overview of that. Number of fittings and lamps and converters. They would be exit emergencies and stuff like that, which are considered converters. We can do commissioning as well. So we can scan the network and we can say, this is all the devices that I've got on that network currently. There's a short address and a long address. We can assign them to groups here or single or unassign them. And we can change their address inside the ETS depending on what thing it is. And from here we can switch them on, switch them off, blink them and remove them. And so you can do this broadcast up here. And you see a lot of those features that are available in the DCA app are also available here. Okay. You can see here an overview of what fittings are assigned to what groups. Okay. Moving through to the settings here, we can also do individual ballast configurations or group settings as well, and we can do things like change colour, brightnesses, and stuff like that to test out these fittings. Rename the groups, and if we press state sync on our gateways, then that will pull the information back from the DALI side, push it into the KNX as well, which is quite handy. We have those same abilities, and we have everything we had with scene control here as well. So again, these scenes can be done inside here. We can link them to KNX scenes, and we can play that scene and test it and see exactly if that's the effect we're after. Talking about effects, we can do effects as well and time control in here. So same things you saw in the DCA app. Diagnosis, this is mainly to do with the exit emergency test fittings, so you can make sure that they're doing their duration test, battery, lamp, all those kind of tests and the results that come from it. And I just thought I'd show you quickly in the administrator here, we can actually go to do things like certificates, because this is a secure device. We can update firmware, we can change passwords and user passwords, but we have a section here for API and MQTT. Now, for you guys who are not aware, MQTT and API are becoming much broadly used in the markets, and it's basically ability for us to control our DALI or to do testing and stuff with non-KNX visualizations. A lot of big companies these days are running their complete companies on MQTT. So we can comply. Whatever the requirements are, we can guarantee we comply. And here we have the MQTT server address, the host name, authentication. We haven't got a connection at the moment. And your subscriptions, you can make up your commands as you need them, and your publications, what you're publishing, and where they're to be found. So again, really handy for the likes of facility managers, where you want to limit down what they can do and still have the full DALI ability without having to install ETS, without having to install proprietary software. This is just running through a web browser. For ETS integrated tools, it's quite handy because there's no extra software. It's just a plugin or an application that runs inside ETS. And so two examples I've got of this today is the Intesis gateway in DCA app, and the Theben one, which we'll have a look at, which is going to be live. So just a reminder, to get this app, you actually need to go to the KNX online shop and buy it. They're usually for free. And then you need to download it or sign in and license it to your computer. So sometimes you need to install the app here, and you can see I've got the DALI Gateway DCA app for those, and the Zennio DALI tool. And so I installed those apps, downloaded them from the online KNX shop, installed them, and in sometimes having to license them. Okay, so once that happens, when you open up the ETS parameters, you'll have another tab next to it called the DCA tab. And this DCA tab is the actual manufacturer's DALI tool, but it's using the KNX bus to access the DALI side. So it's really handy. All these tools that we're talking about, you don't have to clip onto the DALI bus. You can actually do it remotely if you had to. So you can dial in and do it remotely if you had someone on site. Just a brief overview of the Zennio one. You have 1 or 2 channels. You have groups. You hit new initialization, and it'll go and search for individual ballasts and pull them up, or pull in already addressed ballasts as well, and then you can group them by dropping and dragging. And you can number of things like dimming control and setting scenes and emergency. Okay, so the next one we want to look at is, I've chosen the P64 because it interestingly has DALI. It supports input devices anyhow from the DALI side of things. So I'm going to look at it in my topology, and basically I've got one running here in my test lab on site, so this will be live. And what I'll do is I click onto the application, and when I click on the application, automatically the DCA app comes up, and you'll see here what it's going to use is actually the DALI network is going to be activated through the KNX side of things. And so what we get is something like this. Now this DCA tool is really nice as well, and it's got its advantages, but if we're doing a new installation, we could hit new installation and basically our addresses would come up here. So we'll hit post installation, and we'll already keep assigned ones, and we won't do anything else, and then we can search through, and basically what happens is these are all being attributed, but what would happen is we'd have our DALI devices come up down the side here, and we could click on them and blink them and figure them out, and then we could drag them into groups, and we could drag them and adjust the addresses as well. Okay, so what I've already done here is I've pulled the fittings over to their group number, to their short addresses, and readjusted those addresses, and you can see those over here. And from here I can go and click on these and blink them and turn them on, or unlink them, or whatever I want to do. Okay, a really nice thing here is we just have to sync the state or download to the device. That is the same as pushing the network DALI devices back into the gateway, or vice versa, syncing with the gateway if you program that first. But this one also, and to do with that as well, sorry, just before we go too far, we can do scenes inside here. So we can create some really elaborate kind of scenes, and we can link those to KNX group addresses, give them descriptions, fade times. We can test directly from the gateway. We can set colors, because this is a tunable white gateway. So if I opened up the color dialog, which I can't do now, I can adjust it and set a color. Okay, same with effects. So the effects would be starting an effect. It might be a number of effects, and what also is really handy with these tools is once you've got an effect, or you've got a schedule for your human-centric lighting, you can always import and export. Okay, so that will go back into an XML file, and then you can import it for the next time you're doing it as well. And same with this, has got true color timer on it, so you can run a certain time control thing with it as well. Just looking at it really on the input side of things, I have a number of different DALI 2 sensors connected to this as well, and what you can see is I've got down the side here, so I've scanned the network, we've done a new installation, and basically it's brought up these, and as these become available, then I can link these to inputs on my KNX side of things. Okay, so then I can actually have a look at I've got a sensor here, and I can have a look at its diagnostic information as well. Basically we can pull it up, we'll sync the state, show diagnostic information, and you can see when the motion sensor's on, when it's not, how much. This has actually got brightness involved as well, so it's a second instance of the sensor, and we can refresh it and so on and so forth. Okay, and that's just a little overview of doing the commissioning inside the DCA app. Okay guys, this brings us on to our next little section after we're having looked at different ways of commissioning, and that's, I thought I'd touch on the human-centric lighting part and the scheduling, and it is a special section of the functionality, whereas the gateways are always have that can do color control, always have the ability to adjust the color, but they don't always have the ability to do the scheduling or the algorithm or anything inside them. But they have that functionality to be able to listen to other components that are ordering them to change the light color. They have the HCL, or Human-Centric Lighting Controller, in it. So I put a little quote there that we got on our website for one of our things. But HCL is defined as lighting that is designed to support health, well-being, and performance of humans. It is more than just illuminating spaces. It's about creating light environments that align with our natural circadian rhythms. Our bodies are naturally attuned to the cycles of the day and night, and the HCL seeks to replicate this by adjusting the intensity, the color temperature, and special composition of the light throughout the day. Okay, so this is all scientifically backed, and you know, it's an important part. We spend so much time in our buildings, whether they're work or whether they're our homes. We should be making these as comfortable and as healthy as we possibly can. And a big advantage of that being you guys being, you know, automation experts, you can extend the people's, you know, and really uplift the people's comfort levels and stuff in their houses and their buildings. And going a bit further in the commercial side of things, it is been already proven that it can affect well-being and mental health, as well as productivity. Okay, so it does have a value add. What do we need for human-centric lighting? Well, we need a color control output. So we need something that can adjust those fittings through the color ranges. Okay, but we also need fittings that support those color temperatures. Okay, so we need special fittings that can support the color ranges, and they go from cool up to warm, and we need something to control that. Okay, now these are not mutually exclusive. They may be all together in a device, they may be separate, but these are the basis of what we need to consider when we're looking at human-centric lighting. We need a real time, okay? Something to keep sync of the outside world, to make sure we're in sync with what is actually happening in outside. And that's for true human-centric lighting, unless you're trying to flip something on its head, unless you've got, and even still, if you've got people working through shifts and stuff like that, that you're trying to replicate a day when it's night, you still need to know when the time of day it is. We can get that kind of information, and sometimes the gateways can be sent the time and date themselves. Some of the gateways that have IP connected to them have an NTP server connection to them already, or they can get their date and time update through weather stations, through GPS visualizations that are on the KNX. And finally, the last thing we need to consider, or we need as part of this, is we need the algorithm or the sequence. We need that information that's changing the color temperature of the light fittings to better replicate the day and to back them off just as it would naturally on the day. So in the mornings it's blue because you're waking up, you know, you're going through a nice warm stage, makes you relaxed, and then yeah, different outputs for different types of things. So they can actually come from visualizations, and they can be triggered from gateways. The gateways themselves can have them inside them. As you saw before, we had effects and scenes and things like that, which are timed and faded. So they can all be done inside them. All they need to do is have a trigger. And on top of that, if the customer wants to automatically or manually adjust the color control for whatever reason, they can overwrite the scene and the schedule, and it'll be okay. HCL controllers is really the key word. And we have devices such as presence detectors which have them inside it. And I'm just going to show you a couple of options or a couple of examples of where we might see some of this. So So these are just some of the devices that actually have the HCL or the algorithm or the sequence built straight into them. And so what they do is they look at the time of day and a bit of information like that, and they make adjustments to the lighting as an ongoing schedule. And so they have the algorithm all built into it. And you'll notice this touchscreen here is a visualization that we sell here, and it has integrated HCL and control of biodynamic lighting. Control changes the light and the temperature and course of the day. Okay, so that will talk directly to the gateway and tell the gateway what color control to go to. If we have a look at some motion detectors, there's a motion detector by a really good company called E-Electron, and basically it is a presence detector that has a number of features in it, but one of the features is, interesting enough, it manages the lighting, ambient lighting based. So it makes measurements based upon illuminance, and it has coordination of the position of the job, and it looks at the time based things. So it makes decisions based upon those kind of things, and it's got a predetermined circadian rhythm algorithm, and then you can go and actually talk to the gateways as well and adjust that immediate area depending on if it's meant to be warmer or cooler. And these are just some examples of other places where the HCL lighting and scheduling can be stored. Okay, just coming back now, after we've been all through that, I know we're running really close to time, and I appreciate everyone. I hope you're getting a bit out of it. Finally, I just thought we'd go over some common wiring and network issues and how to maybe get through these. We see these a lot, and generally, I would say that definitely all the gateways we sell, we don't really get much problem, and that's a natural part of competition with KNX devices. The manufacturers can't afford to have faulty fittings and stuff. Yeah, everything's had a problem, but generally what we see is problem with the actual ballast, and I think that's equally it's equally presentable for any system you're looking at, Dynalights or your C buses or DALI controls or whatever, Zen control. And generally, it's down to the fittings, and there's a few reasons for that. Because a lot of the time you're given fittings from the customer and told to use them and told that they're good and that they've got everything they need. But then you become responsible to make them work. You have to warn your customers. If they're not certified and they're not trademarked, then there's a good possibility they're not going to work, okay? Because so many times I've had people with fittings and they've promised and told me that they're up to date and they're certified and everything like that. We go through a lot of hassle just to find out that the fitting wasn't actually applying to the standard, or it wasn't to the standard, and there was a small adjustment needed. Good question to ask. Is it DALI certified? You'll notice all our gateways and all the products we sell have the DALI certification and the logo trademarked, making sure that it is at least it's a tested device. Is it listed on the DALI Alliance website? That's a really easy website to go in, put the part numbers in, make sure. Is the manufacturer reputable? Is it too good to be true? If it's too good to be true, it generally is. Just to touch on that, I've had manufacturers which I call very reputable DALI device manufacturers, and we have had problems with firmwares and stuff like that. So it's not impossible, and it's not impossible for our products to have problems either. Dropping of addresses, see this a lot, and I think I've maybe doubled up here when I'm talking about this, but we see this a lot. This is usually a flash ROM problem. The gateways don't randomly issue new addresses automatically or clear addresses of gateways. They only look at addresses of unaddressed devices. Okay, so if you have a DALI installation where you've got fittings in there, the thing, you can nearly guarantee that there's a problem with the actual ballast of the device. Another really important one is there incorrect wiring? Is there loops? Have they put more cable than they're meant to use? Have they got enough power supply on the DALI network? Have they wired and mixed between universes? This is another common problem as well. And another thing that's not on this presentation, but be aware of, DALI networks can exist over multiple circuits. So what can happen often at times is the electricians have one circuit on and those DALI devices are seen by the gateway and they'll get a certain address, okay? Then what will happen is for some reason they'll turn that circuit off and turn the next circuit on. That next circuit also feeds fittings that are applied to that same DALI universe. The DALI gateway sees, oh, I've lost those fittings and here's a new fittings, we'll give them addresses. Now we turn both the circuits back on, we've got duplicate addresses of the same fittings across two different circuits. Okay, so this is very hard to distinguish, and that's where that feature on the ABB tool where you might want to reset, because sometimes you can click on an address and both fittings lighten up. So basically you can hit a reset on that address or hit a reset onto that network and it'll reset every device on the network and it'll come back and be issued with a fresh address. A lot of the gateways will warn you if there's too many lights on the network, and this is a really hard one, especially for consultants and everything like that. Under the DALI standard, there is ability for 64 fittings. I can tell you if you are any experience with the DALI network, the maximum amount of fittings, I've heard some people say 50, some say 55. There's a good reason for that. DALI is a really slow protocol and it's a polling protocol. Okay, so we want to leave room and headspace and bandwidth for the DALI to operate correctly. But more importantly, if a customer is unaware that their DALI networks have got 64 fittings on them and they try and add more fittings to them, it's going to kill them. Okay. I've seen instances where things like DALI devices that are not certified and DALI relays, they can consume more on the DALI bus than is allowable, and this can create a problem. It can overstress the power supplies and max out the current that's consumption that it should. So keep a lookout for things like that. I've talked about this before. Even reputable manufacturers need sometimes to update their firmwares, and the other thing that's really important is, have you got the correct control equipment to match to your DALI type devices? And what I mean by that, have you got DALI type 8 fittings or color control fittings or exit emergency fittings? And have you got the right corresponding gateway or DALI controller to handle this equipment? They've got to be compliant and they've got to be both up to that kind of standard for it to work. A lot of the time you'll find it'll work, but it'll only work at a basis level.